I'm delighted to have you as part of this community. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for choosing our video on 2011 Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference football season. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. The 2011 Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference football season is made up of 10 college athletic programs that compete in the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference (KCAC) under the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics (NAIA) for the 2011 college football season. The season began play on August 27 when the Sterling Warriors played William Jewell, followed by the Victory Sports Network College Fanz First Down Classic. The regular season ended play on November 12, 2011, with every team in the conference playing a game against another conference team. The final game of any team in the conference was November 19, 2011, when Ottawa lost in the first round of postseason play. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of conference teams and information and explore its various aspects. Conference rules require each team to play all other teams within the conference and two other regular season non-conference games for a total of 11 games. Previously, the conference only allowed a 10-game season. School mascot head coach location Stadium Bethany Terrible Swedes Jamie Kruslinsborg, Kansas Lindstrom Field Bethel Threshers Travis Graber North Newton, Kansas Threshers Stadium Friends Falcons Monty Lewis Wichita, Kansas Adair Austin Stadium Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes Dave Dallas Salina, Kansas Salina Stadium McPherson Bulldogs Joe Bettison McPherson, Kansas McPherson Stadium Ottawa Braves Kent Kessinger Ottawa, Kansas People's Bank Field St. Mary Spires Lance Hinson Leavenworth, Kansas St. Mary Field Southwestern Mount Wilders Ken Crandall Winfield, Kansas Richard L. Juntz Stadium Sterling Warriors Andy Lambert Sterling, Kansas Smithers Stadium Tabor Blue A's Mike Gardner Hillsborough, Kansas Joel Weens Stadium. Welcome to the next segment, where we explore preseason outlook and its significance in our journey. The 2011 Spring Coaches Poll placed 3 teams in the conference in the top 25 of the NAIA. McPherson received a No. 9 ranking, Ottawa was ranked at No. 10, and Kansas Wesleyan at No. 20. Sterling and Friends also received votes in the poll. The 2011 preseason coaches poll in August dropped McPherson from No. 9 to No. 12. Ottawa maintained its position as No. 10 and Kansas Wesleyan dropped from No. 20 to No. 21. As with the spring poll, both Sterling and Friends also received votes. Now, let's redirect our focus towards schedule and discover its significance in our narrative. Schedule is subject to change. Index to colors and formatting. KCAC member 1 KCAC member lost winning team in bold. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore Week 0 from a different angle. Called Week 0 or Week 0 because of the few number of games played, usually considered to be specially scheduled, such as the traditional college Fanz First Down Classic, although any game played this week is considered a regular season game. Both KCAC teams that played this week lost. Brace yourself for a captivating discussion on Sterling versus William Jewell as we explore its nuances and implications. The Sterling College Warriors began the 2011 season with a loss to NCAA Division II William Jewell. Sterling scored first with 2 field goals by kicker Doug Dunn in the first quarter, but was no match as William Jewell rolled on with 33 points. Sterling gave up 5 fumbles and only accumulated 227 yards of offense. It was the first football game for William Jewell since leaving the NAIA to join the NCAA. William Jewell gave up 2 fumbles and scored 3 rushing touchdowns during the game, leaving the final score. Let's transition to 1-10 Ottawa versus No. 23 Baker and uncover its significance. Nationally ranked at No. 23, Baker University upset No. 10 ranked Ottawa University in the 2011 College Fanz First Down Classic played at Lisson Stadium in Baldwin City, Kansas. Ottawa scored first when Shane Gimzo completed a 9-yard run for a touchdown with 9:02 remaining in the first quarter. It was the only lead Ottawa would hold for the entire game, which they lost when Baker's Tyler Hatcher ran the kickoff return for 82 yards for a touchdown and Andrew Kimry completed the PAT kick. Later that same quarter, Baker's Reggie Harris ran a 62-yard punt return for a touchdown to take the lead. Ottawa got close several times with the score at the end of the first half with Baker leading. Baker held Ottawa scoreless in the second half of play while scoring 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Baker recovered 2 fumbles and intercepted 2 passes to win with a final score of. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of Week 1 as we examine its impact and relevance. At the end of this week's play, only 2 teams won games. Bethany and Tabor held a record of. The Fanz Falcons wait until Week 2 for their first game, placing their record at the end of this week. Sterling and Ottawa played the previous week and this week, losing both games and having a record of, and all other teams in the KCAC held a record of by the end of play in Week 1. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into Bethel versus No. 8 William Penn and its impact on our understanding. William Penn began the game ranked No. 8 nationally and proceeded to statistically dominate the Bethel Threshers, starting with a 48-yard pass from Taylor Parsons to DeMarco for a touchdown in the first quarter. William Penn accumulated 589 yards in total offense where Bethel only managed 174 and failed to score the entire game. Bethel gave up 2 fumbles and an interception where William Penn did not commit any turnovers. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of 1-22 Benedictine versus Sterling and explore its various aspects. Sterling lost its second consecutive game and its home opener to No. 22 ranked Benedictine. Benedictine achieved 265 yards in total offense where Sterling managed only 76. Both teams combined for 17 punts in the game for a total of 337 yards punting. On defense, Sterling managed 1 interception for 20 yards but also lost a fumble on offense. The only scores came from Benedictine's 2 touchdowns and extra points in the first and second quarter, leaving the final score at. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of Nebraska Wesleyan versus St. Mary and discover its practical applications. St. Mary opened the season dominating statistically the visiting team from Nebraska Wesleyan in most every category, but still ended up losing the game by a score of. St. Mary achieved 22 first downs and recorded 503 yards of total offense, 485 by passing. However, St. Mary also gave up 5 interceptions during the game plus an additional fumble. Nebraska Wesleyan only managed 355 yards of total offense and 16 first downs, but it was more than enough to win the game. As we transition, let's shed light on Southwestern Assemblies of God versus Bethany and its relevance to our ongoing exploration. Neither the Southwestern Assemblies of God Lions nor Bethany Terrible Swedes cleared 300 yards in total offense in their matchup, but Bethany was able to pull down the win in the first game of the season for both teams. Both teams recorded 3 touchdowns during the game, but Bethany's kicking game brought into extra points and the defense scored a safety to end the game. Both teams also scored a touchdown apiece on defense, the Lions by advancing a recovered fumble, and the Swedes by returning an intercepted pass. Moving on to the next segment, we have 1-20 Kansas Wesleyan versus No. 19 Southern Nazarene. An estimated 2,000 fans were in attendance when Southern Nazarene piled on 615 yards of total offense with 2 rushing touchdowns and 4 passing touchdowns in first game of the 2011 season for both schools. The Crimson Storm defense added another touchdown to the mix when Matt Pruitt managed a 61-yard interception return in the fourth quarter, and kicker Ian Sanders added an additional 10 points with his foot. Kansas Wesleyan scored 3 touchdowns with kicker Jesus Archo successful on 3 pats and a 35-yard field goal. Kansas Wesleyan did manage to average 5.1 yards per carry on the ground compared to Southern Nazarene's 4.5 yards per carry. but the Coyotes achieved 385 yards of total offense and averaged 4.1 yards per pass, compared to Nazarene's 8.5. While Wesleyan scored first and was ahead at the end of the first quarter, they could not maintain the lead and Nazarene won by a final score of. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of 1. 12 McPherson versus No. 11 Missouri Valley. On our broader topic, Missouri Valley proved its ranking above No. 12 McPherson with a thrashing in its home opener against last year's KCAC champion. Missouri Valley took the lead in the first quarter when Lorenzo Dinard completed a 5-yard run for a touchdown and held the lead for the remainder of the game. Missouri Valley scored 7 touchdowns, 5 on the ground, 1 by air, and 1 more on defense while accumulating 486 yards of total offense. McPherson could only manage 1 touchdown and 136 yards of total offense and could not convert a single third down situation in 14 attempts. Local McPherson sportswriter Steve Sell noted before the game that McPherson's team was full of unknowns and noted that the more challenging opponent scheduled early in the season is different from previous years. Let's now turn our attention to 1. 9 Georgetown KY versus No. 10 Ottawa and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. Georgetown KY versus No. 10 Ottawa. Georgetown College traveled from Kentucky to Kansas and defeated the Ottawa Braves in a close game that ended with a final score of. Georgetown's Zach Soda scored 2 rushing touchdowns, the first a 1-yard run in the first quarter, and the second a 64-yard run in the second quarter. Ottawa's Clarence Anderson also scored 2 touchdowns, the first a 6-yard pass from Bobby Adamson and the second an 85-yard kickoff return. Both teams produced comparable statistics throughout the game, but the difference maker in the score was that 2 of Ottawa's extra point attempts were blocked by the Georgetown defense. Now, let's shift our perspective and explore Tabor versus Haskell from a different angle. Tabor's James Monroe scored 3 rushing touchdowns and teammate Brandon Johnson ran for 2 more in Tabor's routed Haskell Indian Nations. Tabor's kicker Anthony Pacheco added 10 more points through the game and quarterback Tim Russell ran for 1 more. Tabor managed 492 yards of total offense while keeping Haskell at 108, with yards in total rushing. Haskell also committed 4 turnovers in the game. Now, it's time to shift gears and explore Week 2. All games played during Week 2 of the 2011 season were conference games. Only Bethany and Fanz are undefeated for the season so far. Southwestern, Ottawa, and Sterling are also undefeated in conference play but have lost games in non-conference play. The remaining teams have all lost 1 game in conference play. If the remaining, only Tabor holds a non-conference win while the rest have failed to win a game as of the second week of the season. The spotlight now falls on Fanz versus St. Mary as we delve deeper into its details. The Fanz Falcons came from behind a deficit in the fourth quarter and defeated St. Mary. The previous year, Fanz went in the game ranked No. 19 but lost to unranked St. Mary by a score of. Fanz produced less total yards of offense, but led a more balanced attack between rushing and passing. St. Mary managed 304 yards of total offense made up of 282 by air and 22 by ground. The Fanz defense did manage to get 3 interceptions during the game. Fanz later forfeited the game due to the use of an ineligible player. Fanz head coach Monty Lewis was suspended for 1 game by the school's athletic department. Let's now turn our attention to Kansas Wesleyan versus No. 10 Ottawa and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. Ottawa managed its first win of the season after dropping 2 games, achieve an overall record for the season after Week 2. And they did so by taking the lead against Kansas Wesleyan in the first quarter when Clarence Anderson caught a 5-yard pass from Bobby Adamson for a touchdown and held the lead for the remainder of the game. In addition to 4 offensive touchdowns for Ottawa, Donald Anderson took a 77-yard interception for a touchdown in the third quarter. Ottawa was especially able to take advantage of mistakes made by Wesleyans' punt team with a dropped snap and then a blocked punt, gaining possession twice deep in Wesleyans' field. As we transition, let's shed light on Southwestern versus Bethel and its relevance to our ongoing exploration. Southwestern won its first game of the season by defeating Bethel. Bethel scored first when Marky Sykes completed a 15-yard run for a touchdown in the first quarter, and Brandon Luce converted the extra point. Luce also hit a 25-yard field goal in the third quarter, but the rest of the game went to Southwestern. The Mound Wilders averaged nearly 8 yards per play on offense as they racked up 485 yards in 62 plays from scrimmage. They achieved 21 first downs and 6 touchdowns, 5 rushing, 1 passing, with Austin Leddy successful on 6 extra point kicks plus a 36-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. Let's now turn our attention to Tabor versus Sterling and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. Sterling held Tabor scoreless until 1:12 remained in the game, when James Monroe completed a 2-yard run for a touchdown and followed up with another carry for the 2-point conversion. For Sterling, Matt James caught 2 passes from quarterback Chris Jolie for touchdowns. Mike Talton managed a 50-yard punt return for a touchdown, and kicker Doug Dunn added 6 more points with his foot. Sterling finished with 160 offensive yards and held Tabor to 256 yards, but forced 6 turnovers during the game. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of Bethany versus No. 12 McPherson and exploring its multifaceted nature. Bethany scored a major upset against 12th-ranked and winless McPherson, resulting in springboarding themselves to the top of the KCAC. Bethany managed 512 yards of total offense to McPherson's 422. Bethany led the entire game from the first quarter, but McPherson closed the gap several times within 2 points. Bethany's junior Allen ran for 194 yards and 4 touchdowns on 44 carries. Quarterback Darby House threw for 312 yards as Bethany had 512 total yards. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of Week 3 and discover its practical applications. For Week 3, the one non-conference game was lost by Friends to No. 13 Southern Nazarene. 19th-ranked Bethany secured another win, and the McPherson-Southwestern game was delayed in the middle of the first quarter because of weather and resumed the next day. With the groundwork laid, let's now examine 1:20 for Ottawa versus St. Mary and its connections to our previous discussions. Ottawa scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal in the first quarter and put the game out of reach for St. Mary, despite the fact that St. Mary had a more productive offense, posting 314 yards to Ottawa's 286. St. Mary completed 232 yards in passing on 21 attempts, but gave up 5 interceptions in Ottawa's victory. In the upcoming section, we'll be dissecting Sterling versus Kansas Wesleyan and exploring its implications in greater detail. Kansas Wesleyan led the way, producing 458 yards in total offense compared to Sterling's 250, yet Sterling kept pace with their opponent, with each team producing 3 touchdowns and converting their extra points. Sterling committed a total of 13 penalties in the game, giving Kansas Wesleyan an additional 127 yards, while the Coyotes only committed 3 penalties for a total of 23 yards. Sterling scored all their points in the first half, while Kansas Wesleyan scored in the second and fourth quarters. On the final play of the game, Wesleyan's Terry Stecker completed a 36-yard field goal to win the game. In the upcoming portion, we'll be dissecting Friends versus No. 13 Southern Nazarene to gain a comprehensive understanding of its implications. Head coach Monty Lewis was suspended, and a weather delay that held up the game between the Southern Nazarene Crimson Storm and Friends Falcons in the Southern Nazarene victory. Friends managed a mere 87 yards of total offense and 1 touchdown against 13th Southern Nazarene, who piled on 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. A bright spot for Fanz was a Kelton Miller 50-yard field goal in the second quarter. Southern Nazarene won the game with 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, putting the final score at. In this section, we'll be peeling back the layers of McPherson versus Southwestern to reveal its true essence. McPherson travelled to Winfield on Saturday and McPherson's scored first when Chase Osborne caught a 46-yard pass from Matt Summers for a touchdown in the first quarter. With 7:07 remaining in the first quarter, severe weather forced a delay of one day for the remainder of the game. When the game restarted the next day, Southwestern managed 10 points in the second quarter with a touchdown and field goal of their own, but McPherson made a final touchdown score in the fourth quarter to win the game. In the upcoming portion, we'll be dissecting Bethel versus No. 19 Bethany to gain a comprehensive understanding of its implications. Bethany scored on the first play of the game when Ira Autry completed an 81-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. In the second quarter, his teammates Theron Allen tacked on an 80-yard kickoff return also for a touchdown. James Johnson managed a 58-yard punt return for a touchdown, and Skylar Jones picked up a fumble and carried it 6 yards for another touchdown return. One sportswriter stated that Bethany's special teams turned an otherwise competitive game into a blowout. Bethany accumulated a total of 445 yards on offense, compared to Bethel's 336. Bethel managed 5 touchdowns, where Bethany achieved 9 for a final score of. In the following section, we'll be immersing ourselves in the captivating world of Week 4. In Week 4, Bethel College lost a non-conference game against Southern Nazarene University. The remaining games were in-conference games. Ottawa did not play in Week 4. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of Bethany versus Kansas Wesleyan and explore its various aspects. Bethany traveled less than 20 miles to arch-rival Kansas Wesleyan, where Patch kicker Alex Fanbrough kicked 6 field goals and an additional extra point to lead the terrible Swedes to a victory. Overall, Bethany piled on 466 yards of total offense and held Kansas Wesleyan to 283. The only player to score besides Fanbrough was Theron Allen on a 35-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. As we venture forward, let's examine 1-12 Southern Nazarene versus Bethel in detail and gain a deeper appreciation for its significance. Southern Nazarene's Jaquiel Everhart scored a touchdown with a 6-yard run with 12:53 remaining in the first quarter. 10 seconds later, his teammate Derek Perkins caught a 12-yard pass from quarterback Brady Wardlaw for their team's second touchdown. Through the remainder of the game, Southern Nazarene held the lead and accumulated 650 yards of total offense, 377 rushing, 273 passing, and held Bethel to a total of 154 yards of offense and only 11 yards of rushing. Bethel managed only 11 first downs, 3 which came from penalties, yet punted 12 times during the game. Bethel converted a third down to a first down only 1 time in 14 attempts. Southern Nazarene led at halftime and the final score ended at. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of Southwestern versus Sterling as we dive into its profound implications. In November, Sterling self-reported the unintentional use of an ineligible player and as a result forfeited 3 games played during the regular season. The first of those 3 games occurred in Week 4 against Southwestern. The forfeit was declared after the game was played. Let's now turn our attention to McPherson versus Fanz and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. Jaron Trotter of Fanz was the first to score on a 5-yard touchdown run in the first quarter, but by the end of the first quarter McPherson took the lead and held it for the rest of the game. Fanz recorded more yards on offense with 326 compared to McPherson's 275. Fanz actually had more rushing yards than McPherson produced in total offense, but 2 lost fumbles and 2 more interceptions led to a final score of with a McPherson victory. With our foundation established, it's time to explore St. Mary versus Tabor and its relevance to our overarching theme. St. Mary's David Harley returned a fumble for 1 yard to score a touchdown with exactly 9 minutes left in the first quarter, and his team held the lead for the remainder of the game. St. Mary scored 8 touchdowns with 495 yards of offense, while Tabor managed just 1 touchdown with 286 yards of offense. Tabor was held scoreless in the second half, while St. Mary put up another 10 points toward the final score of. With the groundwork laid, let's now examine Week 5 and its connections to our previous discussions. All 10 conference teams played a game in Week 5. 2 teams played outside the conference and picked up non-conference wins as Southwestern defeated Haskell and No. 15 Bethany defeated Avila University. As we progress, let's shine a spotlight on 1-15 Bethany versus Avila and examine its intricate interplay within our topic. Bethany outpaced Avila University in a game that statistically was closely matched between the 2 teams. Bethany put down 364 yards of total offense, compared to Avila's 331. Bethany had 21 first downs compared to Avila's 19. Bethany went 7 for 15 on third down conversions and Avila went 7 for 17. Both teams were 0 for 1 on fourth down attempts. Each side lost a fumble, but Bethany gave up 2 interceptions where Avila had 0. Despite the similarity of statistics, Bethany pulled off a non-conference win by a score of 30-13. Let's now turn our attention to Bethel versus McPherson and examine its role within the larger context. Last season's conference champions lost to last season's conference last place team in a game where the underdog not only won but won as the visiting team. McPherson did manage slightly more production in total offense, but it wasn't enough. Bethel found an edge in going 4 for 4 on fourth down attempts for a first down, and took 2 fumbles away from McPherson in their victory. Now, let's shift our attention to Sterling versus St. Mary. In November, Sterling self-reported the unintentional use of an ineligible player and as a result, forfeited 3 games played during the regular season. The second of those 3 games occurred in Week 5 against St. Mary. Let's transition to Haskell versus Southwestern and uncover its significance. Southwestern scored 28 points in the first quarter and did not look back, holding Haskell not only scoreless but without a first down as well. Southwestern accumulated 552 yards of total offense and scored 9 touchdowns, including a Lorenzo Fouts' 76-yard punt return in the fourth quarter. The loss put Haskell to for the season. Southwestern quarterback Brady May passed for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns in 9 of 10 attempts. Now, let's delve into the intricacies of Tabor versus No. 21 Ottawa and explore its various aspects. Ottawa's Shane Gimzo ran for 3 touchdowns and threw for 1 more on the way to their team's victory over Tabor. A bright spot for Tabor was Maurice Johnson's 80-yard punt return for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Tabor was able to achieve just 266 yards of total offense while Ottawa earned 473 yards. Ottawa managed 26 first downs compared to Tabor's 11, and was on third down attempts while Tabor could only convert 1 third down out of 11 attempts. The final score ended with an Ottawa victory. As we move forward, let's uncover the untold stories and fascinating intricacies of Kansas Wesleyan versus Fanz. Reinhard Lugalia, a linebacker for Fanz, returned a fumble on the opening kickoff for 10 yards and a touchdown after only 9 seconds of play. Fanz completed a 2-point conversion and held the lead for the rest of the game. Fanz accumulated 630 yards of total offense with 27 first downs and held Kansas Wesleyan to 148 yards and 4 first downs. Fanz also converted 3 for 3 on fourth down attempts. The final score was. Moving on to the next segment, we have Week 6. McPherson College traveled to California for the lone non-conference game of the week, losing to Azusa Pacific University. Sterling College was idle in Week 6, and all other teams played conference games. In the following section, we'll be immersing ourselves in the captivating world of Tabor versus Kansas Wesleyan. Tabor took the lead when Anthony Pacheco was successful with a 25-yard field goal in the first quarter. Later in the same quarter, Kansas Wesleyan's Brett Geeson made good on a 5-yard run for a touchdown, and Wesleyan held the lead for the remainder of the game. Tabor managed 347 yards of total offense but just one touchdown, while Kansas Wesleyan made a mere 2 more yards in total offense with 349 but came up with 4 touchdowns in the game. Wesleyan won with the final score at. In the next portion, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of St. Mary versus No. 14 Bethany and examining its broader implications. When Bethany's Theron Allen made a 1-yard run for a touchdown and Alex Fambrough kicked the extra point with 11:25 left to play in the first quarter, the terrible Swedes looked to be on to another win. Later in that same quarter, St. Mary's Will Ryan scored on a 26-yard run and Bobby Shattle's extra point tied the score. The lead either changed or was tied a total of 8 different times during the game, which saw St. Mary produce 485 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns while holding their ranked opponent to just 440 yards and 4 touchdowns. St. Mary finished the game in the lead to win the game. Welcome to the next segment, where we explore 1-19 Ottawa versus Southwestern and its significance in our journey. Ottawa piled on 507 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns while holding Southwestern to 363 yards and 2 touchdowns in their rout of the Mound Builders. A highlight, Ottawa's Clarence Anderson completed 88-yard punt return for a touchdown in the third quarter. Ottawa led the entire game and won with a final score. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of Fanz versus Bethel and their profound significance. Fanz piled on 467 yards of total offense and held Bethel to just 83 in a game that had Fanz score a total of 8 touchdowns, including a 60-yard fumble return in the fourth quarter. Bethel managed 8 first downs and just 1 touchdown for the entire game. Fanz won the game with the final score at. As we progress through this video, let's shift our attention towards McPherson versus No. 12 Azusa Pacific and uncover its hidden depths. Azusa Pacific and McPherson met for their first ever football game. Starting with Azusa's Jonell Murphy making a 23-yard run for a touchdown, Azusa commanded the lead for the game. McPherson managed 310 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns, but Azusa Pacific put on 421 yards and 7 touchdowns. Both teams recorded 18 first downs. The final score was Azusa Pacific 54, McPherson 21. In the next portion, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of Week 7 and examining its broader implications. Every team in the conference played a game during Week 7. St. Mary and Kansas Wesleyan both played and lost non-conference games. All other conference teams played a conference opponent. As we progress through this video, let's shift our attention towards Bethel versus Sterling and uncover its hidden depths. In November, Sterling self-reported the unintentional use of an ineligible player and as a result forfeited 3 games played during the regular season. The last of those 3 games occurred in Week 7 against Bethel. As we move forward, let's uncover the untold stories and fascinating intricacies of Kansas Wesleyan versus Lindenwood. Kansas Wesleyan traveled to St. Charles, Missouri for a game against NCAA Division II Lindenwood University. Lindenwood was able to easily handle the Coyotes, helped by scoring 34 points in the second quarter. Kansas Wesleyan did start out on top with a 59-yard interception return for a touchdown in the first quarter to take a lead, but the final score ended with Lindenwood winning. Let's now turn our attention to Southwestern versus Fanz and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. Fanz managed 337 yards of total offense with 254 yards passing and 83 yards rushing while managing to hold Southwestern to a total 208 yards in offense while gaining a comfortable lead by halftime. Southwestern scored in the second half to bring the score within 7 points and put the game within reach with 9:20 left in the fourth quarter when Joseph Vargas caught a 13-yard pass from Brady May and Austin Leddy kicked the extra point. Fanz would score one more time with Kylan Pullman's 26-yard field goal to put the final score at. In the upcoming section, we'll be dissecting 1-16 Ottawa versus McPherson and exploring its implications in greater detail. Ottawa scored all its points in the first quarter. Ottawa scored first and McPherson tied the score in the first quarter, but Ottawa's 5 rushing touchdowns made all the difference in their victory. McPherson did manage to outproduce Ottawa offensively with 440 total yards to Ottawa's 362, but the effort failed to lead to victory for the Bulldogs. Let's now enter the realm of 1-19 Bethany versus Tabor and discover the fascinating stories it has to tell. Bethany took the lead in the first quarter with 10:17 on the clock when Xandra Thompson caught a 12-yard pass from Darby House for a touchdown, but that didn't stop Tabor from attempting a fourth-quarter comeback. Spurred on by Spencer Brown's 78-yard fumble return for a touchdown in the third quarter, Tabor got the score within 3 points when James Monroe ran in a 2-point conversion with 6:28 remaining in the game. Tabor nor Bethany would not score again and the final score stayed at. In this section, we'll be peeling back the layers of St. Mary versus No. 11 William Penn to reveal its true essence. William Penn's P.J. Parry scored a touchdown with a 15-yard run in the first quarter to take the lead. St. Mary closed the lead to within 1 point in the second quarter when Bobby Shuttle's extra point kick was good, but William Penn held on for the remainder of the game after scoring a total of 5 touchdowns and holding St. Mary to 1. William Penn won the game. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of Kansas Wesleyan versus Bethel and exploring its multifaceted nature. Kansas Wesleyan rolled to 635 yards in total offense and 9 touchdowns while holding Bethel to 235 total yards and 1 touchdown. Wesleyan averaged 8.9 yards per play while Bethel averaged 3.4. Most everything seemed to go right for Wesleyan. Langston Kennedy returned a 12-yard interception for a touchdown. Taylor Sachs returned a blocked punt for a touchdown. Terry Sticker scored 14 points kicking. Wesleyan's offense was on 4th down attempts, and Wesleyan's defense held Bethel to 4 third down attempts. 4 athletes for Wesleyan completed at least 1 pass, and 3 of those threw at least 1 touchdown. Wesleyan scored 23 points in the final 2:09 of the first half, leaving the final score lopsided. Let's now enter the realm of Fanz versus No. 20 Bethany and discover the fascinating stories it has to tell. Bethany ruled the air with 230 yards of passing offense and 2 touchdowns while holding Fanz to just 28 passing yards and only 1 touchdown. Bethany's Alex Fambrough was successful with a 20-yard field goal and 2 extra point kicks to add on to Bethany's victory over Fanz. Fanz did score first when Jaron Trotter made good on a 9-yard run for a touchdown and Kylan Pullman kicked the extra point in the first quarter. It was the last time they would score in the game, and Bethany would only score in the second and third quarters, leaving no points for either team in the fourth. Now, let's redirect our focus towards McPherson versus Tabor and discover its significance in our narrative. McPherson scored 28 points in the first half and saw no need to put on any more points for the remainder of the game, and held Tabor scoreless for the first 3 quarters of play. McPherson's offense earned 404 total yards and 4 touchdowns while Tabor managed 295 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Tabor fumbled the ball 8 times and turned it over to McPherson for 3 of those. McPherson won the game with a final score of. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into St. Mary versus Southwestern and analyzing its key components. Southwestern took the lead with 1:06 in the first quarter when Corey Holbert ran for 3 yards and Austin Leddy made good on the extra point, but St. Mary tied it up with 9:21 left in that same quarter when Alex Gomez Coelho caught a 15-yard pass from Mike Keys and Bobby Shuttle's kick was good. Southwestern took the lead and held it until the third quarter when St. Mary pulled ahead. Southwestern then took the lead back in the third quarter and held it for the remainder of the game. However, one source claims that Southwestern never lost the lead the entire game. Get ready for an enlightening exploration as we dig into Sterling versus No. 15 Ottawa and understand its role in the broader context. Ottawa held Sterling to 187 yards in total offense and 1 touchdown while achieving 360 yards and 4 touchdowns themselves. Ottawa took the lead in the first quarter when C.J. Krug caught a 12-yard pass from Bobby Adamson for a touchdown. Sterling's only score came from a touchdown in the first quarter when Brayton Gillen ran 85 yards on an interception return for 6 points. The final score was Ottawa 27, Sterling 6. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into Southwestern versus Kansas Wesleyan and analyzing its key components. Kansas Wesleyan scored 21 points in the first quarter and Southwestern scored 21 points in the fourth quarter in this high-scoring game. The Mound Builders managed 523 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns while the Coyotes put together 388 total yards and 6 touchdowns. Southwestern was 8 for 19 on third down and 3 for 7 on fourth down, while Wesleyan was 4 for 14 on third and 1 for 2 on fourth. Kansas Wesleyan ended up winning by 10 points. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into Fanz versus Sterling and analyzing its key components. Fanz held Sterling to no score and managed 3 touchdowns in their 2011 matchup. Fanz made 1 touchdown passing, 1 rushing, and 1 on defense when Terry Cobb made good on a 36-yard pick. Fanz earned 217 yards of total offense and held Sterling to just 84. Fanz managed 3.4 yards per play and held Sterling to 1.8. The final score was. Without further ado, let's move on to the topic of 1:14 Ottawa versus No. 18 Bethany. With 12:29 left on the clock in the first quarter, Ottawa's Clarence Anderson caught a 17-yard pass from Bobby Adamson to take the lead. Ottawa held the lead for the remainder of the game, scoring 4 touchdowns and holding Bethany to 2. The final score was Ottawa 30, Bethany 17. With this win, Ottawa secured at least a share of the conference crown. Prepare yourself for an in-depth analysis of McPherson versus St. Mary in this section. With 6:57 left in the first quarter, St. Mary's Chris Bash grabbed an interception and ran it 30 yards for a touchdown. St. Mary held the lead for the remainder of the game. Twice McPherson got within 3 points at the end of the first quarter and then again at the end of the game, and McPherson's offense outproduced St. Mary by 476 total yards to 295. McPherson also earned 27 first downs while St. Mary only made 14. McPherson was on fourth down while St. Mary was, and McPherson managed 6.3 yards per play while holding St. Mary to 5.4. St. Mary managed better results in several areas, 5 penalties for 45 yards to McPherson's 10 for 99, 2 interceptions to 0, and 10 points by kicking to McPherson's 7. It was the 3 extra kicking points that made the difference in the score as St. Mary won. Let's now turn our attention to Tabor versus Bethel and uncover the fascinating insights it brings to the table. All points were scored in the first half during this game between Tabor and Bethel. Tabor scored first when Dory Gardner caught a 21-yard pass from Simon McKee, and then Anthony Pacheco kicked the extra point to take the lead in the first. Bethel's Jordan Owen completed a 3-yard run for a touchdown, and Brandon Lewis's kick after tied the score. Still in the first quarter, Tabor took the lead back when Simon McKee carried the ball 1 yard to score, and Anthony Pacheco made a second extra point to bring the score. In the second quarter, Tabor's James Monroe delivered a 98-yard run to the end zone for the final score of the game to put it at. As we transition to the next segment, let's unravel the mysteries surrounding Kansas Wesleyan versus McPherson and gain a fresh perspective. Kansas Wesleyan piled on 502 yards of total offense and McPherson created 392 of their own in what ended up being a 1-point victory for Wesleyan. Kansas Wesleyan put 24 points on the board before McPherson could manage a single score in the second quarter, and the first half ended with Wesleyan holding a comfortable lead. In the third quarter, McPherson put 17 unanswered points on the board to bring the game within reach, but Wesleyan held the lead to the end of the game. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of 1-13 Ottawa versus Fanz on our broader topic. The Fanz Falcons took an early lead when Kylan Pullman succeeded with a 19-yard field goal in the first period to take the lead. Just over 3 minutes later, Ottawa's Travis Adamson caught a 14-yard pass from Bobby Adamson, and Jeff Stamp's kick put Ottawa in the lead for good at. Ottawa managed 4 touchdowns for the game and held Fanz to just 1 in the third quarter. The final score was Ottawa 28, Fanz 10. With our foundation established, it's time to explore 1-20 for Bethany versus Sterling and its relevance to our overarching theme. Bethany took the lead with 8:52 left in the first quarter when Theron Allen made his first of 2 touchdowns. Sterling caught up and tied the score twice in the game. Bethany produced 232 yards of total offense and 3 touchdowns when Sterling could only come up with 175 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Bethany successfully converted 2 of 2 fourth-down attempts when Sterling could only make good on 1 of 3. The final score was Bethany 24, Sterling 14. In the next phase, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of Bethel versus St. Mary and exploring its real-world applications. Bethel's head coach Travis Graber entered the game with respect for St. Mary's Lance Hinson and the Spire's third-place national ranking in passing offense. St. Mary used those passing skills to accumulate 537 yards and 4 touchdowns in passing alone. The Spires racked up 27 points in the first quarter and dominated the entire game, winning. Let's now zoom in on Southwestern versus Tabor and uncover the hidden gems that lie within. The lead changed 3 times when Tabor and Southwestern met. Tabor took the lead with 2:16 left in the first quarter when Anthony Pacheco made a 10-yard field goal. They held that lead of 3 until 2:18 on the clock in the second quarter when Adam Hilker caught a 9-yard pass from Brady May for a touchdown. Austin Leddy's kick made the score. 2 more of Leddy's field goals increased Southwestern's lead. Tabor's Simon McKee scored on a 14-yard carry and Pacheco was good again on the extra point, closing Southwestern's lead. Tabor's Justin Vargas made a 26-yard interception return for a touchdown and Pacheco's kick made the final score in favor of Tabor. With our curiosity piqued, let's embark on a dedicated exploration of Week 11 and its fascinating intricacies. All games started in Week 11 at 1:30 p.m. on November 12. This week represented the last week of the regular season for every team, and all teams played conference games. Get ready to uncover the mysteries surrounding St. Mary versus Kansas Wesleyan as we navigate its intriguing terrain. St. Mary racked up 402 yards of total offense and Kansas Wesleyan tacked on 349 of their own when the 2 teams met in Salina for the end of the regular season. St. Mary managed 3 touchdowns and held Wesleyan to 2 in their game that ended with a final score of with St. Mary holding on to the lead for the win. St. Mary's Mike Keys, the ranked No. 2 passer in the NAIA, completed 2 touchdown passes into the win during the fourth quarter to rally for the victory. Brace yourselves for the next chapter, where we'll be dissecting Tabor versus Fanz. With 10:15 showing on the clock in the first quarter, Tabor's Simon McKee achieved a 54-yard run for a touchdown. That and Anthony Pacheco's kick for the extra point put Tabor in the lead. With 6:34 on the clock and still in the first quarter, Fanz Bothwell made an 80-yard punt return for a touchdown. Kylan Pullman's kick tied the score in the first. The score remained tied until Pullman made a field goal in the second quarter to take the lead. After 301 yards of total offense and holding Tabor to 193 yards, Fanz held that lead for the remainder of the game. The final score was a 10-point victory for Fanz. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of 1-25 Bethany versus Southwestern and exploring its multifaceted nature. Southwestern took an early lead to upset ranked Bethany in each team's final game of the 2011 season. Bethany took the lead in the third quarter and held it for just over 6 minutes, until Southwestern's Zach Totzkji picked a 28-yard interception return for a touchdown. Southwestern held the lead for the remainder of the game with the final score at. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of Sterling versus McPherson and exploring its multifaceted nature. McPherson scored 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, 2 by Terrence Jones and 1 more by Torres Zantignick to take a lead of. Sterling scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter to bring the score to at halftime. In the second half, each team managed a field goal to keep the final score 7 points apart, with McPherson winning. Moving forward, we'll be taking a closer look at Bethel versus No.10 Ottawa. On November 12, 2011, Bethel traveled to Ottawa for its final regular season game. After 10 touchdowns and 467 yards of total offense, Ottawa won the game by a score of. Bethel's Nathan Murphy recovered a fumble in the end zone for their only score. The game was surrounded in celebration of the 1000th game of Ottawa football. Ottawa is the first team in the conference to reach the 1000-game mark. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of postseason and discover its practical applications. Ottawa completed the regular season ranked No.10 and was invited to the 2011 NAIA Football National Championship. Ottawa played No.8 Azusa Pacific and lost in the first round by a score of. Ottawa gained 359 yards of total offense but gave up 587 yards to the Cougars. Ottawa made most of their yards passing, but gave up 4 interceptions in the process. This was the last game for any conference team in the 2011 season. Moving forward, we'll be taking a closer look at player and coach awards. Upon conclusion of the season play, the conference granted multiple individual and team awards. Lance Hinson and Kent Kessinger were both awarded Coach of the Year, an honor that has been shared by Hinson previously. Several players were named Player of the Year in various categories, and the conference also named first and second team all-conference players. The Dr. Ted Kessinger Champion of Character Award was presented to Spencer Brown of Tabor. Wide receiver Clarence Anderson was named the Conference Player of the Year for his efforts. Anderson concluded the season ranked No.1 in NAIA Division I in 3 categories: all-purpose yards 1,981, punt return yards per attempt 21.8, and in total punt returns 501. He was ranked second in 3 other categories and was ranked 6 or above in a total of 12 statistical categories. Offensive Player of the Year went to Bethany running back Farron Jr. Allen. Allen concluded the season with national rankings of No.1 for all-purpose per game 170.9 and No.2 for total rushing 1,404, rushing yards per game 127.6, and all-purpose yards 1,880. Defensive Player of the Year was awarded to Dexter Davis of Fanz. At defensive end, Davis led the nation in sacks per game 1.4 and total sacks 14. Special Teams Player of the Year was awarded to kicker Alex Fambrough of Bethany. Fambrough ended the season ranked No.2 in the NAIA Division I for total field goals with 17 and ranked No.4 in total points for the season at 89. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support and I'll see you in the next video.